A newly released virtual reality game called Night Defense promises an enormous reward for anyone capable of clearing its infamous Helldream mode. The prize is an astonishing 10 billion won, a sum large enough to completely transform a person's future. For one young man, however, the reward means far more than financial security. Surrounded by stacks of books and burdened by the reality of his life, he feels hopelessly confined by his circumstances. In his mind, winning the game represents the only opportunity to break free. At the same time, the media is busy celebrating the political achievements of the highly respected Assemblyman Him Yui-soo. As public attention grows, the spotlight soon falls on his son, Him Jun, who is praised as an exceptional student. The public views him as the flawless successor to his father's legacy, and articles featuring his story and photograph quickly gain popularity online. Countless people scroll through the news on their phones, admiring the image of the perfect heir. Instead, the meeting leads Jeona into a filthy, isolated alleyway. There, the girl's friendly demeanor vanishes, as she joins a group of delinquents, who immediately begin pressuring him. Nervously, Jeona reminds her that he had already loaned her a considerable amount of money only a week earlier. One of the gang members suddenly grabs him and threatens to expose his involvement in creating an illegal website. The bully then points out that the girl herself is equally guilty because she used the site. With a mocking grin, he sarcastically suggests that they should all surrender themselves to the police together. The color drains from Jeona's face as the true consequences hit him. He instantly realizes who would suffer the greatest damage if the scandal became public. The answer appears clear in his mind: his father's spotless political reputation would be destroyed. Leaning closer, the girl speaks softly, but her words carry a clear threat beneath their sweetness. She piles guilt onto him, insisting that he is the only person capable of helping her. That evening, Jeona stands outside his father's study, tense and anxious. His hand trembles as he reaches toward the doorknob, dreading the encounter waiting on the other side. When he finally enters, frustration burns inside him, threatening to erupt. Yet the moment he sees who is in the room, his anger immediately transforms into fear. Assemblyman Him stands before him with a cold expression filled with disappointment. In a stern voice, he reminds Jeona that the election is rapidly approaching. He warns his son not to engage in anything that could tarnish the flawless image he has carefully built. As Jeona remains speechless, his father suddenly grabs him by the collar and demands a response. Jeona quietly clenches his fist, revealing a small act of rebellion. Nevertheless, he forces a cheerful smile onto his face and assures his father that he will not become a disappointment. The assemblyman responds with contempt, questioning whether it is even possible to feel more disappointed than he already does. He bluntly states that Jeona's sole purpose is to obey his commands without resistance. A harsh truth settles over Jeona. This suffocating and controlled existence has become the entirety of his life. Later, exhausted and emotionally crushed, Jeona collapses over his desk. The unbearable pressure weighs heavily on him, twisting his face with pain as he silently curses his cruel destiny. Suddenly, a soft touch brushes against his hand, pulling him out of his despair. Startled, he jerks back in surprise, completely caught off guard. The source of the interruption is a small cat gazing up at him with an innocent meow. His expression softens as he asks if the little creature was worried about him. The cat immediately leaps onto him in a playful attack, and for the first time in a while, Jeona laughs as he struggles against its antics. As he holds the mischievous animal close, a deep sense of loneliness washes over him. He realizes that he has no one else to rely on. Clutching the cat tightly, he recognizes it as his only companion and friend in a world that seems determined to turn against him. The narrative then returns to the first young man, who sits staring intensely at Night Defense on his computer monitor. His eyes shine with concentration, because he has finally survived 99 waves, leaving only one final challenge standing between him and victory. Just when success appears certain, the screen suddenly flashes red. A crushing message appears before him: game over. The words repeatedly blink across the screen, as if mocking him for failing at the very last obstacle. He stares in disbelief, unable to understand how victory slipped away at the final moment. Quickly checking his phone, he discovers that after hundreds of attempts, players have begun to suspect the game is intentionally impossible to clear. Elsewhere, a famous streamer erupts in anger while broadcasting, reflecting the frustration shared by the entire gaming community. Back in his room, Jonah looks at the exact same game with icy determination. Knight Defense has existed for an entire year, and countless players have managed to survive all 99 waves. However, despite endless attempts from skilled gamers around the world, no one has ever defeated the mysterious 100th wave. Unlike everyone else, Jonah refuses to give up. With his loyal cat Ruru watching nearby, he views the seemingly impossible game as the only route to freedom for both himself and his beloved companion. His hopes rest on a legendary S-rank item known as Rizzledrake's Heart, which has finally been upgraded and enhanced to its absolute limit. Even with this unmatched item in his possession, the 100th wave still stands as an impossible barrier. Surrounded by the remains of snacks from an all-night gaming marathon, he's utterly lost on how to move forward. Then, without warning, his cat casually reaches out and taps the screen, its paw landing right on the legendary item. Jonah's eyes go wide as dread washes over him, instantly realizing what is about to happen. Ruru's paw presses directly on the dismantle option for his most valuable possession. Pure panic floods his face, but there's no time to stop it. A confirmation window appears, validating his worst nightmare. His legendary S-rank item has been dismantled successfully. A silent cry of anguish escapes him as he watches countless hours of effort disappear because of one curious feline. Everything he worked for is reduced to a mere 1,000 enhancement fragments, making all of his progress feel worthless. Overwhelmed with frustration, he understands that this disaster has erased his path to freedom and forced him back to square one. Despair consumes him as he wonders whether escaping his miserable fate is even possible, despite being granted a second chance at life. Yet among the fragments, something completely unexpected appears. The legendary Dragon Soul. His hopelessness immediately gives way to confusion. Dismantling an item should never reward something so extraordinarily rare. He stares at the Dragon Soul in disbelief, unable to comprehend how such an item could emerge from a simple dismantling process. Then a startling realization begins to form. The impossible reward seems connected to the seemingly unbeatable 100th wave. Before he can fully process the discovery, the mysterious Dragon Soul is automatically absorbed by the game. His astonishment quickly transforms into revelation, as the answer suddenly becomes clear. A notification appears, confirming his suspicions. He has uncovered the hidden method for clearing the 100th wave. Hope surges back into him. With renewed determination, he hovers his finger over the start button, prepared to begin the entire challenge from the beginning once again. The story then shifts forward to Jonah sitting in the ordinary setting of his high school classroom. Although he's physically present for the lesson, his thoughts are elsewhere, entirely focused on planning his next strategy. Back in his room, he devotes every spare second to the game, often with Ruru comfortably perched atop his head. Even while walking through the city streets, his attention remains fixed on his phone, fully immersed in his mission. After endless hours of grinding, Jonah returns to his desk, prepared for one final attempt. Once again, he clears all 99 waves. Remembering the secret he discovered, he sacrifices his strongest item to obtain the hidden Dragon Soul. His face tightens with concentration, completely confident that this new approach will succeed. Armed with his newfound knowledge, he taps start and launches the legendary 100th wave. The climactic battle begins, placing his lone knight against a gigantic boss and its massive undead army. He taps relentlessly, pouring every ounce of concentration into controlling his character while desperately hoping his strategy is correct. A brilliant burst of energy floods the screen as the knight unleashes an overwhelming attack. The display trembles violently from the impact, signaling the turning point of the notoriously impossible stage. Determination burns in Giurna's eyes. He is certain this time will be different. Then the word victory erupts across the screen. He has finally achieved the impossible. Jumping from his chair in overwhelming excitement, he lets out a triumphant shout that echoes throughout the room. But the celebration ends instantly when he notices his father standing in the doorway, gripping a golf club. All of Giurna's joy disappears. His father reveals that the blackmailers contacted him. The assemblyman explains that they attempted to extort him by using Giurna's mistake as leverage. His voice grows colder as he reminds his son of the family's most important rule: never disgrace the family name. Terrified, Giurna recoils and desperately apologizes while his father slowly approaches. From outside the room, their shadows paint a horrifying picture as the assemblyman raises the golf club over his frightened son. With frightening speed, the club comes crashing down in a furious arc. Giurna's world breaks apart. Terror fills his eye as he witnesses the brutal impact. His phone lies shattered on the desk, symbolizing both his weakness and his inability to oppose his father. A single tear slips down his face as a painful realization emerges, igniting the first spark of genuine rebellion. Later, Giurna cautiously approaches his father and asks about his missing cat, Ruru. The assemblyman dismisses the question without emotion, claiming that Giurna no longer requires such a pet. Giurna clenches his jaw, barely suppressing the rage building inside him. Noticing this defiance, his father coldly questions the rebellious look on his face. Fear and anger collide within him as he desperately demands to know what happened to Ruru. His father pauses deliberately, drawing out the moment with cruel satisfaction before finally answering. Ruru is with your deceased mother. The words hit like a nightmare. Giurna's face twists into pure horror as he comprehends the monstrous implication behind the statement. His father's cruel teachings from years past echo through his mind, promising rewards in exchange for absolute obedience. He remembers the chilling warning never to disappoint him again. The memory of his father's cold, emotionless voice fills him with dread. Every promise of belief and affection had merely been another instrument of control. Back in the present, Giurna's sorrow transforms into pure hatred. Looking at the discarded golf club, he realizes he can no longer endure this existence. At the lowest point of his life, a system notification suddenly appears. It declares him the first player ever to conquer Knight Defense. The achievement feels completely hollow. He collapses, convinced there is nothing left worth living for. Then his broken phone suddenly lights up. A mysterious invitation appears on the screen. An impossible wave of energy erupts outside his window, calling him toward another world. A towering pillar of light descends from the sky and strikes a magnificent castle located in a strange, unfamiliar realm. Inside that world, Giurna materializes before astonished guards who immediately hail him as the savior destined to rescue them. He finds himself kneeling in a grand hall surrounded by knights who recognize him as a legendary hero. Common citizens erupt into cheers, their faces overflowing with desperate hope for the champion they have been waiting for. But Giurna feels nothing. Where grief, sadness, and relief should exist, there is only emptiness. With unsettling clarity, he realizes that all of his emotions have vanished. An imposing, bearded man dressed in royal garments clears his throat and demands attention. Seated upon the throne, the king formally asks whether he is the prophesied knight destined to save the kingdom. Giurna studies the monarch, a faint spark of recognition crossing his unnervingly calm face. He immediately remembers the pixelated king from the game. Realizing he has somehow been transported into the world of Knight Defense, he listens as the ruler introduces himself as Bis Geordia III, King of the Geordia Kingdom. The monarch explains that the kingdom stands on the verge of ruin, surrounded by monsters on every side. At that exact moment, a messenger rushes into the hall and urgently confirms the severity of the crisis. Giurna quietly analyzes the situation and the kingdom's circumstances, his expression completely blank. The messenger hurriedly whispers even worse news into the king's ear. Giurna recognizes every detail. The entire scene is an exact recreation of the game's opening sequence. The king abruptly ends the briefing, insisting that events have become too urgent for lengthy explanations. A game-like interface appears before Giurna, offering him the title of Knight Commander while demanding that he choose a side. Unsure whether he is dreaming or experiencing reality, he decides to make a single request before answering. With a faint trace of his former self resurfacing, he names his price for saving their world. 1,000,000,001. Memories of Ruru flash through his mind, painfully reminding him of everything he has lost. The nobles whisper among themselves, questioning both his strange demand and his unimpressive appearance. The king dismisses concerns about the amount, and instead promises to grant any wish Giurna desires if he accepts the role of protector. Giurna remains expressionless, as he considers the limitless offer. For the first time, his eyes widen slightly. The promise of anything stirs a faint emotion deep inside him. Yet the king's commanding tone sounds disturbingly familiar. The demand for obedience echoes words he has heard before. Suddenly, the king's request shatters his composure and triggers a vivid traumatic memory. He is pulled back to moments with his father, whose menacing eyes promised rewards in exchange for submission. The memory grows stronger, as he recalls suffocating grips and empty assurances that all his wishes would be granted. A tear slips down his cheek. The king's words have reopened wounds he thought were buried. For a brief moment, the king's face overlaps with his father's, their manipulative promises becoming indistinguishable from one another. Giurna finally explodes. With fierce anger, he rejects the offer and refuses to become anyone's pawn ever again. The king watches this unexpected resistance as his expression hardens. Giurna realizes that everywhere he goes, people only care about his title and the benefits they can gain from him. Images of his classmates' betrayal flash through his mind. He remembers his father's controlling smile and understands that even his own family viewed him as a tool for their ambitions. He begins to wonder whether this new world is simply another prison, one demanding that he become a slave to a different title. The entire royal court gasps in disbelief, stunned by the outburst from the very hero they were expecting to save them. Giurna scoffs at the notions of wealth, fame, and status, things that have brought him nothing but suffering throughout his life. Fixing his gaze on the king, Giurna silently concludes that promises of rewards hold no value for him anymore. Wearing an expression filled with disdain, he condemns everyone before him and prepares to refuse their proposal outright. Without hesitation, his finger presses the decline button. The kingdom's fate is decided in that instant. The king and his advisor can only stare in stunned disbelief, unable to understand why their long-awaited savior would reject them. As the system window shatters apart, the cold certainty in Giurna's eyes reflects the finality of his choice. The narrative shifts, revealing the consequences. The kingdom is overwhelmed by endless waves of monsters. Deprived of its hero, the kingdom's armies are defeated and unable to complete their mission. The throne room lies destroyed, symbolizing the complete downfall of the realm. Yet another possibility suddenly presents itself. A system notification appears, confirming the shocking decision he has made. He has officially rejected the human faction. Almost immediately, a second message appears, granting him the unexpected opportunity to choose a different allegiance. A hidden route has been unlocked. He is now offered the chance to join the monster faction, and begin an entirely new game. Giurna carefully considers this secret path, fully understanding the implications of siding with monsters. He quickly realizes this route is no longer about protecting humanity. The entire objective has changed. Instead of defending a kingdom, he will now be leading an invasion. Above him, the king glares with fury, warning that every decision comes with consequences. Turning toward his subjects, the monarch roars for their attention. His face twisted by rage, the king officially strips Giurna of his legendary status. He publicly brands him an enemy of the crown and a traitor responsible for placing the entire kingdom in danger. As the king orders his knights into action, Giurna's attention remains fixed on the glowing crimson window before him, offering a completely new beginning. Following the king's command, waves of armored knights rush toward him with deadly intent. Facing the assault, Giurna quietly decides that he is finished enduring the demands of others. He remains perfectly calm as the royal knights close in, weapons drawn and ready to kill. A sinister red light flickers within his eyes as he confronts their murderous advance without flinching. Grinding his teeth, he finally releases the fury he has kept buried for so long. A violent surge of power explodes from his body, sending the charging knights flying in every direction. The king watches in utter disbelief, as the authority he relied upon is shattered so effortlessly. A system notification confirms that his transformation is complete. His body changes into a being of shadow and flame. Unfamiliar power floods through him, granting abilities far beyond human limitations. The system then reveals the ultimate objective connected to his new allegiance. The mission is brutally straightforward. Destroy the human faction completely. Looking out over the kingdom, Giurna declares that the era of defense has ended. Now, it is time to attack. Another system window appears, announcing the beginning of the first wave and introducing his new monster army. A 10-minute countdown starts ticking toward the launch of his invasion. The game further explains the ultimate goal of the monster faction. With determination burning in his eyes, Giurna learns that his purpose is the total destruction of the human world. However, this dark path offers an extraordinary reward. If he succeeds, he will be allowed to take any one item from this world back to his original reality. The significance immediately strikes him. He can return home, but not empty-handed. A memory surfaces of his mother bringing Ruru home, reminding him of happier days long gone. A powerful determination takes shape. Perhaps he can go back and change everything. Surrounded by hostile knights, he finally has a reason to fight. The possibility of fixing his past fills him with renewed purpose. The royal knights stagger backward, shocked by the ominous energy erupting from him. From his throne, the king struggles to understand what he has just witnessed. Calling Giurna a monster no longer feels sufficient. His new form resembles a terrifying silhouette made of darkness and fire, radiating an otherworldly aura unlike anything this world has ever seen. Remaining calm, Giurna evaluates the situation. Although choosing factions is something new, he suspects the game's fundamental mechanics still apply. Just as expected, a main quest window appears. His first objective: crush the human defenses. Despite the change in alignment, the familiar progression system remains intact. His expression stays cool and analytical. Knowing how the game normally unfolds, he expects to receive a powerful S-rank ally as a reward. However, instead of a knight appearing, a mysterious black egg materializes before him. The unexpected sight catches him completely by surprise. The system explains the reason. Because he joined the monster faction, his starting reward has changed into a powerful monster egg. Without any hesitation, he accepts. A brilliant burst of light erupts from the egg, blasting nearby knights away. As the smoke clears, an enormous shadowy figure begins to emerge, its overwhelming presence chilling the surroundings. The royal knights stare in horror, realizing something powerful has just been summoned. Giurna's eyes widen with recognition. He never expected the game to grant him such a legendary creature from the very beginning. The system confirms his suspicion. The creature is none other than the terrifying dragon boss from Wave 99. The legendary cold-blooded dragon, Rizzled. Giurna instantly understands the implications. If the true Rizzled appears here, the human faction will be annihilated immediately. But instead of a gigantic dragon emerging, a tiny bat-winged creature bursts from the egg with an adorable chirp. Giurna freezes in disbelief. Rizzled has been summoned as a level 1 baby dragon. The newly hatched creature gazes up at him with innocent eyes, completely unaware of its legendary status. The tiny dragon happily licks his hand, displaying a surprisingly affectionate side for such a feared monster. Giurna is stunned. The creature reminds him uncannily of Ruru. Another system notification appears. He has acquired a powerful ability called Eye of the Overlord. He quickly learns that this passive skill allows him to analyze monsters and items alike. Meanwhile, the royal knights regain their confidence. Seeing only a tiny dragon, they dismiss the summon as pathetic. Convinced he is vulnerable, they charge forward once more, intent on killing him. Giurna's determination solidifies. Whether this world is a dream or reality no longer matters. A sinister purple glow fills his eyes as he selects his first target. Activating Eye of the Overlord, he realizes his only chance lies with his tiny companion. The analysis reveals the dragon's first skill. Level 1 Dragon Breath. His sole chance of survival. With a desperate command, he orders the baby dragon to attack. The knights swarm toward him. Their captain raises a halberd, preparing the final strike. Giurna places all of his faith in the legendary Dragon Breath. The baby dragon gathers a compact, but concentrated sphere of dark energy inside its mouth. One knight's confident charge instantly turns into terror. The attack is unleashed. From his throne, the king's eyes widen in shock. A devastating crimson beam erupts forward, effortlessly tearing through the armored knights. The blast smashes through the castle wall and continues toward the city beyond. Terrified citizens can only watch as enormous pieces of the castle break apart and crash from the sky. Standing beside his dragon companion inside the massive hole left behind, Giurna surveys the destruction he has caused. His eyes remain wide with disbelief as he begins to grasp the overwhelming power now at his command. The king's advisor recoils in horror after witnessing a palace wall destroyed by a single attack. Panicked courtiers label him a demon, unable to comprehend the monster he has summoned. A dark smile spreads across Giurna's face. Conquering this world suddenly seems much easier than he initially thought. The system reminds him once again of the ultimate reward, returning home with any item he desires. He thinks about the countless legendary artifacts scattered throughout this world, confident he can find something capable of changing his past. Reflecting on the misery of his former life, he decides there is no reason to rush back. With the tiny dragon perched on his shoulder and growling softly, he chooses to focus entirely on the mission before him. The enraged king rises from his throne and addresses the person who was meant to save the kingdom. His face burns with fury as he prepares to issue a grave declaration. Beside him, the dragon growls. Giurna silently vows to destroy everything standing in his way and claim the reward waiting at the end. Far below the palace, life in the city continues, unaware of the catastrophe unfolding above. A blonde female knight suddenly senses the disturbance. Concern immediately fills her face as she looks toward the royal palace. Clenching her teeth, she desperately hopes she can arrive in time. She races through the corridors, her urgent shouts echoing through the halls as she rushes toward the king. Back inside the throne room, Giurna calmly instructs his tiny dragon to prepare another devastating attack. The king's advisor panics and orders the surviving guards to form multiple defensive shield formations. Giurna scoffs at the medieval tactic. A few shields will never stop an attack capable of tearing through solid stone. Dark energy swirls around him as he raises a finger and locks onto his target. His objective is simple. The king. Seated upon his throne, the monarch braces himself for what seems inevitable. But just as Giurna is about to launch the attack, a powerful knight bursts through the doors, announcing his arrival. The knight who had just arrived lets out a sigh of relief, convinced that the king is finally safe from the threat. Meanwhile, the king's advisor is left completely puzzled by the sudden failure of the attack. Giurna notices the dark bags beneath his companion's eyes and immediately pieces together what happened. It reminds him of an important game mechanic. A system notification soon confirms his suspicion. The dragon's powerful dragon breath skill had completely depleted its MP. Refusing to give up, Giurna reasons that even if special abilities are unavailable, perhaps a simple normal attack will still be enough. He orders the dragon to attack once more. The result is no different. Only another tiny stream of smoke escapes its mouth. Grinding his teeth in frustration, Giurna realizes he has no choice but to wait for the skill's cooldown and mana recovery. At that moment, a massive armored warrior steps forward and openly condemns him for threatening the king. Giurna turns toward the newcomer, concern appearing on his face for the first time. A ranking interface flashes before him, displaying the kingdom's hierarchy of strength, ranging from apprentices all the way to elite knights. The warrior standing before him is identified as one of the legendary 12 Zodiac Knights. An S rank. His name appears on the screen. Ares. A powerful knight whose determined gaze immediately focuses on ensuring the king's safety. Giurna's face pales as he fully understands what kind of opponent now stands before him. With both sides clearly drawn, the king gives a final command. Eliminate the intruder. Ares accepts without hesitation. His flaming staff ignites as he prepares for battle. Panic grips Giurna. He's facing an S-rank knight, while possessing virtually no means to fight back. His eyes widen in alarm as he recognizes Ares as one of the kingdom's legendary 12 Zodiac Knights. The knight raises his weapon and begins preparing a devastating area of effectability. With a powerful slam of his staff, a catastrophic wave of fire erupts across the throne room. A gigantic wall of flames bursts outward, engulfing the entire area and trapping Giurna and his dragon within a blazing inferno. Yet as the attack unfolds, Giurna's shock quickly shifts into confusion. The spell isn't targeting him directly. Instead, the massive blast shoots beyond him and tears through the castle itself, creating even more destruction. The royal knights are caught in the attack as well. Many are consumed by the flames of their own allies' spell. Cries of confusion and pain echo throughout the hall, as they realize their kingdom's strongest protector makes no distinction between friend and foe. Giurna sits amidst the burning chaos, stunned as the surviving knights scream in agony around him. It doesn't take long for him to understand what happened. The flame wall skill travels in a straight line from the caster toward the target. Since he was the intended target, he barely managed to avoid the path of destruction at the last moment. Looking around at the fallen guards, he realizes something unsettling. Their supposed protector has absolutely no concern for his own allies. Giurna clenches his jaw, disgusted by such reckless use of power. Ares merely scoffs, unimpressed that Giurna managed to dodge the attack. The Zodiac Knight's eyes glow threateningly, as he promises the next strike will not miss. For a brief moment, Giurna sees an opportunity. Ares' strongest skill is now on cooldown. But that hope quickly fades. Even without that ability, the gap between them remains enormous. Ares charges forward, his sword engulfed in flames, warning Giona that resistance will only make things worse. Desperate to survive, Giona frantically searches for any possible solution. He refuses to accept defeat after making it this far. As he braces himself against the approaching night, a system notification suddenly appears. A lifeline. An unclaimed main quest reward. His eyes widen as he realizes it contains a random item box. This may be his final chance to turn the situation around. Without wasting a second, he immediately accepts the reward. He slams his hand onto the confirmation button with desperate force. A mysterious treasure chest materializes before him. The attacking knight mistakes the phenomenon for some kind of summoning spell. Suddenly, a brilliant golden light erupts from the chest. Giona's eyes widen in surprise. Emerging from the radiance is a colossal and beautifully crafted sword. The weapon radiates overwhelming power. Without hesitation, Giona activates Eye of the Overlord to inspect it. The analysis window reveals the weapon's identity. Hellbringer. An S-rank sword destined to spread chaos and destruction. Giona can hardly believe his luck. Did he really obtain an S-class weapon from his very first random item box? The realization leaves him speechless. A weapon possessing such tremendous power could only have one terrifying purpose: the complete annihilation of the human faction. The giant sword crashes into the ground. Then something unexpected happens. The floor beneath it begins to crack. Unstable energy surges violently from the weapon. Giona's confidence immediately transforms into panic. The sword is dangerously unstable. Before he can react, the ground erupts in a massive uncontrolled explosion. The blast throws him backward without warning. Completely betrayed by his newly acquired weapon, Giona is launched through the air. Moments later, he finds himself falling from the castle. What seemed like a miraculous victory instantly becomes a terrifying plunge toward the ground. As he tumbles through the sky, he angrily wonders what kind of poorly constructed palace can't support the weight of a single sword. His irritation quickly turns into fear. He's already in serious trouble before accomplishing anything. As the ground rushes toward him, Giona refuses to accept such a ridiculous and anticlimactic end. Instinctively, he shields his head and braces for impact. Then suddenly, his fall stops. Completely confused, he finds himself suspended in midair. Looking down, he realizes he was saved only moments before crashing into a courtyard fountain. The source of his rescue soon becomes clear. His tiny dragons bat like wings. The baby dragon struggles desperately to keep him airborne, finally demonstrating a glimpse of its legendary heritage. Far below, the citizens of the capital point upward in shock, staring at the man floating above the city. Eventually, the dragon manages a rough landing. Giona grimaces in annoyance after being dropped directly into the middle of hostile territory. Still, the chaotic battle has provided him with valuable information. He now understands just how enormous the gap is between his current strength and the kingdom's elite forces. More S-rank knights will inevitably appear. If he wants to survive, he must become stronger. For now, a tactical retreat from the capital becomes his highest priority. Back in the throne room, Ares trembles with humiliation. His pride as an elite knight has been shattered by allowing the enemy to escape. Consumed by self-hatred, he berates himself as an incompetent fool unworthy of serving the king. One of the courtiers attempts to get his attention, while the Zodiac Knight spirals deeper into despair. Eventually, Ares snaps back to reality. His eyes widen when he hears the king calling for him. Immediately, he rushes toward the throne and falls to his knees, begging for punishment for his failure. The king calmly silences him. Then, in an ominous tone, he reminds Ares that sunset is approaching. The statement carries a deeper meaning. The king explains that monsters become significantly stronger once night falls. With that in mind, he places Ares in command of the kingdom's defense and orders him to take position at the city walls. The king's expression remains grim. He fully understands the severity of the battle that is coming. Meanwhile, Giona and his dragon continue fleeing beneath the orange glow of the setting sun. As they travel, he recalls the notorious difficulty of the original game. In particular, he remembers the infamous first wave. The opening assault of wild goblins was notorious for halting the progress of countless players. Without a powerful area of effect knight, surviving that stage was nearly impossible. With Ares stationed at the walls, Giona knows the kingdom will have little trouble repelling the first wave. He even considers himself fortunate. Had the kingdom sent an assassin-type knight instead, he likely would have died instantly. His strategic thoughts are interrupted when he notices his tiny dragon steadily losing altitude over the city. Concern flashes across his face. He desperately encourages his exhausted companion, knowing freedom is only moments away. Unfortunately, the dragon's strength finally gives out. Their flight collapses. Both of them begin plummeting directly toward the outer city walls. Panic spreads across Giona's face as he realizes they are heading for a brutal crash. There is no time to react. They hurtle straight toward a solid stone tower. Moments later, they slam into the structure and crash down into a dusty alley below. After the impact, Giona slowly rises to his feet. To his surprise, he is completely unharmed. Examining his hands, he realizes that his body has been enhanced far beyond that of a normal human. As he slips on a pair of discarded boots nearby, a voice suddenly emerges from the shadows. The unseen speaker quietly asks a simple question. "Who are you?" His eyes widen in surprise, stunned to discover another powerful individual waiting here. A formidable blonde knight steps out of the shadows, revealing herself as yet another S-rank defender of the kingdom. The system quickly identifies the newcomer as Lib, an S-rank holy knight. Giona immediately recognizes her. She was the hidden key to defeating the impossible 100th wave. Back when he played the game, Lib was a severely underestimated S-rank knight. Most players considered her ineffective for defensive battles and relegated her to farming duties instead. However, Giona remembers the truth. After countless failures, he eventually discovered that sacrificing Lib was the only method to obtain the dragon's soul and finally conquer the final stage. Now, standing face to face with her in reality, the powerful knight draws her sword and demands that he identify himself. Unlike everyone else, Giona was the only person who ever understood her true value. Calmly, he addresses her by name. The knight immediately looks surprised, as they've never met before. Giona recalls all the repeated failures and endless attempts it took before he finally uncovered her hidden potential. Lib questions his strange familiarity, completely unaware that she once formed the foundation of his entire winning strategy. But things are different now. Since switching factions, the very person who once represented victory has become another obstacle standing in his way. Her eyes sharpen with determination. After assessing the situation, she concludes that he must be eliminated immediately. Elsewhere, beneath the darkening evening sky, the first wave of the invasion begins to move. A savage goblin with glowing crimson eyes snarls as it leads the assault against the kingdom. Along the castle walls, frightened soldiers spot the approaching army and pale with fear. A massive swarm of goblins crashes against the outer defenses, beginning their attack in full force. The kingdom's archers respond quickly, releasing volleys of arrows onto the battlefield below. Meanwhile, desperate defenders hurl stones down at the monsters, attempting to prevent them from climbing the towering walls. The scale of the invasion soon becomes apparent. The city's fortifications are being overwhelmed. One terrified soldier openly questions whether they can survive, desperately asking for their commander. Another soldier reassures him, announcing that the legendary Lord Ares is on his way. Back in the ruined alleyway, Lib continues confronting Giona and demands to know exactly who he is. Suspicion fills her gaze as she warns him that remaining silent will only worsen his situation. Giona knows the truth. He cannot defeat her. He understands that among the S-rank knights, none can rival Lib in close combat. Clenching his fist, he concludes that retreating is his only realistic option. Putting on an innocent expression, he claims to be nothing more than a lost citizen who wandered into the area. Unfortunately, his tiny dragon companion chooses the worst possible moment to appear. The creature pops out and lets out a fierce roar. His cover is instantly blown. Lib's expression hardens as she immediately identifies the creature as a monster. Giona internally panics. The timing couldn't have been worse. The knight's suspicion instantly transforms into certainty. Now convinced that he is connected to the enemy, she prepares to act. Knowing he stands no chance in a direct confrontation, Giona realizes she would cut him down long before he could attempt an escape. Thinking quickly, he moves behind Lib and pretends to understand the situation. The Holy Knight is left puzzled by his bizarre behavior. Stepping forward, Lib confidently declares that she will protect the innocent citizen from the tiny monster. She has completely misunderstood what is happening. The baby dragon tilts its head innocently, adopting an unexpectedly harmless appearance. Despite the adorable display, Lib remains cautious and focused. Not to be outdone, the little dragon doubles down on its charm, staring up at her with sparkling eyes and an innocent expression. The tiny creature releases a soft roar. To Giona's surprise, Lib visibly hesitates. Watching her reaction, he begins to realize that the seemingly intimidating Holy Knight possesses an unexpectedly soft side. Before anything else can happen, a massive explosion erupts near the city's outer wall. The blast signals a major shift in the battle. Lib gasps and immediately turns toward the distant commotion. The distraction creates the perfect opening. Giona slips away unnoticed. Back at the walls, Ares unleashes another reckless attack, accidentally sending several of his own soldiers flying and drawing angry protests from nearby troops. When Lib turns back toward the alley, she finds it completely empty. Confusion spreads across her face as she realizes the person she was protecting has vanished. Moments later, a soldier rushes over, relieved to finally locate the Holy Knight. Her expression immediately becomes serious when she learns that the disturbance originates from the main gate. A powerful impact shakes the massive entrance. The gate groans under tremendous pressure from the monsters outside. The soldiers stationed there stare in horror. The force behind the attack is overwhelming. Large cracks spread across the wooden gate like a spider web, making it clear that it won't remain standing much longer. Arriving atop the walls, Lib orders the soldiers to prepare for close-quarters combat. The defenders call out her name with renewed hope. Below them, endless waves of goblins continue crashing against the fortifications while arrows rain down from above. Among the horde, a gigantic goblin brute raises its massive spiked club. It prepares to deliver the final blow. Lib and her troops watch helplessly as the gate begins to buckle. The soldiers grip their swords tightly, fear visible on every face, as they brace for the coming assault. Then, with one final thunderous strike, the goblin's club smashes through the gate completely. The entrance explodes into splinters. Lib raises her glowing sword and orders her soldiers to stand firm. The goblin brute roars triumphantly and leads the charge through the shattered remains. Yet just as the monster army begins flooding into the city, an enormous wave of energy suddenly tears through their ranks. From atop the walls, Zodiac Knight Ares overlooks the battlefield with irritation. He seems annoyed that he was even required to intervene. Lib stares in disbelief. The reckless commander has finally arrived. Ari's face twists with fury as he sees the breached gate. Internally, he condemns the soldiers under his command, dismissing them as incompetent fools. Without warning, he unleashes his devastating flame wall skill directly into the city square. The invading goblins are instantly consumed by a raging inferno. Their advance is halted in an instant. Ari smirks as he admires the destruction he has unleashed. From a safe distance away, Giona quietly observes the tide of battle shifting. His expression remains unreadable. He reflects on his past accomplishments, remembering that he was the only player who ever managed to clear all 100 waves. However, his objective has now been completely reversed. Instead of protecting humanity, he must destroy the human faction within the same time limit. His tiny dragon companion gazes up at him innocently, completely unaware of the brutal role it now plays. As Giona gently pets the small dragon, he realizes that winning this game could give him the opportunity to rewrite the tragedy of his own life. A single raindrop falls from the sky. The baby dragon glances upward, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. Holding the creature close, Giona silently vows to complete the mission no matter what. He promises himself that when he eventually returns to this city, everything will have changed. Meanwhile, the kingdom's soldiers celebrate what they believe is a hard-earned victory. None of them realize that the true threat has already slipped away. Elsewhere, the Holy Knight silently swears that the next time she encounters Giona will be their final meeting. Meanwhile, Giona ventures deeper into a dark forest. Unbeknownst to him, a monstrous shadow watches his every move. Looking back toward the distant kingdom, he reflects on how far he has traveled from the human capital. Eventually, he reaches the eerie border marking the entrance to monster faction territory. He quickly realizes that this hidden route is essentially an entirely new game. Unlike the Kingdom Path, this is a world he has never experienced before. His countless resets provided perfect knowledge of the kingdom's defenses and systems. But here, that knowledge offers little advantage. All of his previous strategies are now useless. He is effectively starting from the beginning in hostile territory. Standing near the edge of a cliff, Giona suddenly remembers an important detail he completely overlooked. His attention shifts toward his tiny dragon companion, Rizzled. However, the little dragon slowly drifts away from him while its stomach growls loudly. Giona's eyes widen in realization. Even a legendary dragon needs food. Just like any living creature, Rizzled is hungry. The dragon's instincts soon lead it toward a colony of tiny ants. The little creature stares at them with intense curiosity. The ants immediately drop the pebbles they are carrying, shocked by the appearance of the giant predator looming above them. One ant freezes completely. Sweat pours down its face as it stares at the tiny dragon in absolute terror. Giona watches the amusing scene unfold. The dragon's predatory fascination reminds him strongly of Ruru stalking prey like a cat. Sitting down, he begins planning his next move and wondering how to navigate this completely unfamiliar route. Just as he expected, a new quest window suddenly appears before him. The system presents his next objective.